I wanted to record a short video which explained the Eastern analogy of the carriage, the horse, and the driver that Gurdjieff used very frequently to explain the state of ordinary man, the state of being, the state of consciousness that the average ordinary person exists in. And I love this analogy because apart from explaining the average state of being that a person exists in, it also provides a glimpse into the possibilities of what can be achieved through work on yourself and reaching a higher state of consciousness. The analogy can be broken up into 4 parts really. There's the carriage, which is your physical body. There's the horse or the horses in this image, which represent your emotions, your desires, your fears. This is what pulls the carriage. And there's the driver. The driver represents your mind. Now, as I said, there's a 4th component as well. In the average ordinary person, that is someone who's not working on themselves, who's not interested in gaining a higher degree of consciousness, so they're not watching themselves. In such a person, this 4th component is represented by multiple personalities, multiple people who can inhabit the carriage at any given moment and try and get the driver to do their bidding. So think of times when you've been in a certain mood, maybe you're with someone, you make a promise to them on a certain night because you're feeling sentimental, you're feeling full of love and affection for the person. And then the next day you wake up and you hold your head and you say, what was I thinking? This is because we don't have a one universal I. We don't have a permanent occupant in that carriage, according to Gurdjieff. So we have multiple little egos, little I's, impermanent I's, that at any given moment will try and take control of the carriage and try and get the driver to do their bidding. The aim of the 4th way work and the aim of any of the traditional paths towards reaching a higher state of being, and there are 4 in all. I did a separate video which I'll try and link here if you're on YouTube, that you can watch on the 4 ways, the 4 paths according to Gurdjieff by which a person can reach a higher state of being and a higher state of consciousness. But regardless of the path you pick, they all require a certain kind of work on the carriage, on the horse, on the driver, before something more permanent, something that represents consciousness, a mysterious quality that is the real consciousness, can appear. So the aim of the 4th way work is to replace these multiple personalities, these multiple little egos, with the possibility of a permanent I, what Gurdjieff refers to as the master. How do you do this? Well, in the 4th way work, you do this through exercises like self-observation and self-remembering, more importantly. And I did a separate video on self-observation and self-remembering, which I'll try and link here if you're on YouTube. So you can find it up here. So the 4th way, or the Gurdjieff work, suggests that the way by which you can develop the master, the way by which you can develop this permanent I, which then becomes a permanent occupant of the carriage, is through self-observation and, more importantly, self-remembering. By constantly watching the different components that make up this unit, the carriage, which is your body, the horse or the horses, which are your emotions, and the driver, which is your mind, a person begins to develop a certain mysterious quality. A unified sense of I begins to emerge, and this is the real master, this is the real consciousness, which is one of the grand aims of the work. Even if it makes sense to you logically, the idea of the possibility of the appearance of a master, or the creation of a higher state of being that controls all of these units that make up your being, this remains a very difficult task to achieve in reality. This is because we don't have an experience of authentic higher consciousness. And Gurdjieff insists that this higher consciousness is of a finer quality, and it's something that's achieved through immense hard work, regardless of the path you're on. It could be the 4th way, it could be one of the other paths that Gurdjieff outlines, the way of the fakir, using your body or the carriage to get to higher consciousness, the way of the monk, using your emotions or the horses to get to higher consciousness, or the way of the yogi, which uses the driver or the mind to get to higher consciousness, regardless of the path you're using. It all takes an immense amount of work before this mysterious quality develops in yourself. In the Gurdjieff work, the fourth way, it's a combination of the other three, as I've said in other videos as well. By constantly self-observing the different parts of this unit and understanding how they're connected, how are the horses tethered to the carriage? How are your emotions tethered to your body? Is it in the nerves? Is it in your glands, your hormones? Understanding your emotional states, understanding your horses is an important part of self-observation. The same is true with the driver and the horses. How well does your mind control your emotions? Most of us will acknowledge that we have very little control over our emotions. Think of a time when you've been in a really black mood and you're trying to get your emotions to do your bidding, and they simply don't listen. In fact, in some people, in certain emotional states, the horses can be so inflamed with passion that they can destroy the carriage and the body. They will throw themselves off a cliff. They will ride off a cliff, dragging the carriage and the driver and the many personalities that happen to occupy the carriage to their doom. So self-observation is really important in helping understand not just the state of the carriage and the tendencies of the carriage, of the body, but also how are the horses connected to the carriage? How do your emotions work within your body? And how is your mind working with your emotions and your body as well? And finally, self-observation also starts to give the average person an understanding of the many personalities that inhabit the carriage at any given time. The more you self-observe, particularly the more you self-observe in social situations, in situations where you're more likely to manifest these personalities unconsciously, the more you observe these different personalities, the more you collect data on the different trends that start to emerge. Which personalities manifest when? Are you a certain kind of person with a friend, a different kind of person with a lover, a different kind of person with a family member, a different kind of person at work? All of these personalities that inhabit the carriage, the more you observe them, the more something grows above it. And this is where self-remembering gets into the picture. The more you start to self-remember, the more you bring about a memory of, this is me, myself, observing all of these parts, you intentionally start to put in the effort to create a universal I, a permanent ego, a permanent personality, if you will, that's rooted in essence, something that is uniquely you, and that has the ability to observe the others and has full control over the others. Remember, this is a really difficult goal. Even if you understand the analogy by logic, using your mind, listening to my words right now, remember that the goal itself is really, really difficult. It's difficult to get this permanent I, this permanent master that watches over the other pieces. It takes a large amount of effort, a large amount of self-observation, self-remembering, as well as other kinds of work upon yourself. Hard work, before you start to see the possibility of the emergence of the master. At a certain point, the driver will turn around and he will realize that the master is already in the carriage. Other personalities can no longer force their way into the carriage because it has a permanent occupant. And the master communicates perfectly with the driver and tells the driver exactly where he needs to go. As a result of self-observation, the driver understands the horses well. The horses are tethered, they are fed. He knows how to keep them on the road and move towards the aim of the master. And the carriage is well kept as well. Again, through self-observation, you understand the tendencies of the body. And your body can no longer rule you. Your body is subservient to the other parts of your being, to the master's voice. So that's one of the grand aims of the work. And this is why I love this analogy, because not only does it explain the average state of being of the ordinary everyday person, of someone who's not conscious, of someone who's not observing themselves and not doing work upon themselves, but it also explains the possibility of the appearance of the master, of a permanent I, which is one of the grand aims of the Gurdjieff fourth way work. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know what you think in the comments about this analogy. And if you found this video useful, I hope you like it, comment, subscribe, and follow me, because I do plan on saying more. Whoever you are, I wish you well.